Hi everybody, today's segment is dedicated to all of those of you who are thinking about getting into their first rental producing property. On a long-term basis, real estate is always a great solid investment and it can create your own retirement fund. Have a house and have your tenants pay down your mortgage and build your own equity. I meet a lot of people who want to get into it, but they don't really know how to start. So I'm hoping that today I'll give you some information so that you can work towards building your goal. So the first tip that I have is educate yourself. There's something called the Residential Tenancies Act that is part of the provincial legislation which allows the government to enforce rules that affects tenants and landlords. I would strongly recommend you read the act because it's your responsibility as new landlords to follow these rules. Another way to educate yourself, I would suggest finding out what kind of rental properties you can own. You can own single-family residential, duplex, triplex, apartment buildings, commercial, mixed, which is half commercial, half residential, rooming houses. There's a lot of different options, and that would also help you figure out where you'd want to purchase these properties and what kind of tenants you want to attract. A big question you may have is, how do you make money owning a rental property? Well, there are two ways. The first way is to earn a profit from the rents collected. And this can only happen if the rents collected are higher than your monthly costs, your maintenance fees, your property taxes, and any other services that you have to pay. The other way to make money is if you buy a building and it appreciates in value over time. Over time, the market goes up, and then when you decide that you're ready to move or sell the house, you will build equity in the house and you'll make a profit, and you can either use that for your retirement or pursue other investments. Now, the next thing you'll want to take into consideration is financing. The easiest way to get into the rental market is to buy a property that makes sense as a rental, and you live in it and rent out that portion of the home. And then when the time comes that you decide that you want to move to another home, then you rent out that portion that you used to live in, and then you have your rental. Now, if you choose to take this route, then you'll want to take a look at the zoning of the home. Zoning is what sets the guidelines for as to how many units you're allowed to have per household. So if you've got two people living in a house where there's only supposed to be one person living, that would be illegal, and the city can stop you from renting out that property, and you'll also have a harder time getting money from the bank. Now, when you live in the property that you rent out, that's still considered your principal residence. So in terms of financing, traditional lenders will let you put down up to 5% down payment. But if you decide to purchase a second home, then you would require anywhere between 20 and 25% down payment. Starting off small is always a great way to start because there's a lot to learn if you're being a landlord for the first time, whether it comes to learning the rules of the Residential Tenancies Act, or even learning how to deal with tenants, or even picking and choosing what kind of properties you want to get into. There's a lot of information out there if you're looking into getting into investment properties. Talk to your friends who are involved in it, or even get in touch with some real estate professionals. We're always willing to help. Thank you so much for joining me this week. I'm Julie Cox, and I'll see you next week on Let's Talk Real Estate.
Let's Talk Real Estate is brought to you by Bowes & Cox Limited Real Estate Brokerage, family owned and operated since 1956, with locations to serve you throughout South Central Ontario.